Webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Friday, December 17th. I'm Donna Will, Professional Development Coordinator for the Developmental Disabilities Administration. We welcome you to the monthly series of DDA Updates with Deputy Secretary Bernie Simons. Our presenters for today are Bernie Simons, Deputy Secretary for DDA, Patricia Sastoque, Director of Programs, Marianne Kane-Breshci, Director of Family Supports, Kim Gscheidle, Regional Director for the Eastern Shore Regional Office, and Debbie Balea, Director of Community Services at the Eastern Shore Regional Office, and also Robert White, Director of Administrative Services. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few things about the webinar. All participants are in listen-only mode. There are two options to hear the webinar, by computer and phone, and if you look at the panel interface on your right, labeled audio, you can click either computer or phone to switch for the best option. There is one handout for this webinar, and it can be downloaded from the panel. And if you're listening by phone, you can request that they be emailed. We are recording the webinar and posting it on YouTube and the DDA website. Questions can be typed in the question or chat box in the webinar panel, and we will get to those towards the end of the presentation. So now I'd like to introduce Deputy Secretary Bernie Simons. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I want to welcome everybody to our last webinar of 2021 and thank everybody again for all your continued participations in these webinars that we've been doing throughout the year. Your input, experiences, and recommendations have really guided our way through this whole issue in responding to the pandemic. I hope that these webinars have served as an important way to stay in touch and to share and receive current information. And we look forward to continuing these webinars in the upcoming year. Today, we're going to talk about where we are with current status of our booster initiatives, as well as focus on the timelines around the essential transition planning as we move out of Appendix K. We know from your good questions that these really remain an important focus for us. I do want to share today that together, with the support of the commitment from Secretary Schrader to the DD community, we recognize your strong efforts and challenges around reopening. As such, I am sharing that the Appendix K will extend those current flexibilities, and that the ones that were scheduled to end on 12/31 will be extended to March 31st of 22. And so obviously many of these were supposed to end in 2 weeks or whatever, but now we are going to the end of March, and this should support your continued transition and, you know, being able to make business decisions for your agencies and for people who are self-directing what they're doing with their lives, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we as members of the DDA team will share the information today as we continue to move forward about the extension. I'd like to start by saying the department remains very proud of the work you've done throughout the pandemic. You've kept people safe. You've done all kinds of outstanding interventions, creativity, and we know it's been a very difficult time, but you demonstrated a lot of resilience and also innovation. And, you know, I value the collaboration we have as we emerge out of the pandemic, whenever that will be, hopefully not too far in the future. So I remain committed to building off what we've learned as we move forward. We know that we've done some of that when we did Amendment 3. And over the past year, we continue to be doing difficult work day to day to help support and manage people. We know that you've got issues with staffing, and we've had a lot of those conversations. So we know that you facilitated vaccine clinics for individuals, family, staff, etc. DDA through the department has provided PPE through our 4 regions to people who are self-directing and their families and providers. DDA has partnered with SDAN to develop and revise guidance to best support individuals who are self-directing their services. And we work with participants, families, and providers all around Appendix K, unwinding so that it's responsive to all areas of need. DDA developed some guidance that's on our website, and thanks to your feedback, and we were able to get that out and communicate to many people. We've made a lot of progress with the LTSS rate engagement as we move forward to complete those rates. And, we've done a good job in expanding successful provider transition into LTSS Maryland. Many of you went, it had been over a year if you provide either supported living or personal support, because we went live in October, November, December with a full implementation in January. And then we've had 5 additional agencies go in with 100% of their people that they provide supports to. And then obviously there is an investment with the American Rescue Plan Act. We've got some money out to the providers, and we put that into the rates. It's 5.5%, I believe, and Robert can correct me if I'm wrong. He's part of his presentation. So again, you've, I think, achieved a lot, throughout the 2 years. Will be 2 years this upcoming March, and I look forward to continue to working with everybody in 2022 as we move forward. Next slide. So yesterday, the Deputy Secretary from Healthcare Finance and Medicaid Director, Steve Hsu, shared an important communication with all the Medicaid providers that we have within the Department of Health. And that was really good information because there was restoration of a critical operation following the security incident that we had. So what he shared is that the Maryland Department of Health Electronic Data Interchange Transaction Processing System, well, that's a lot, which is EDITPS. Now the providers can submit fee-for-service claims, and they're being processed. And then we obviously have the web EDS or recipient of the eligibility verification system that's up also. So please visit the Medicaid provider information page to see more. Let me just say that regarding PCIS2, because I know people have a lot of concerns about, we got a payment coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've done, with PCS being done, we've in DDA and with the Chief Financial Officer done a workaround on how that payment's going to go out. And I can tell you that within the department, PCIS2 is a very high priority. And obviously, we've done those contingency plans so that everybody can continue to get paid for the third quarter that's coming up. So, next slide. So, I remain really committed, and I'm very proud of our DDA community, individuals, family members, providers, staff, the regional offices, etc. I mean, we're in this together, and obviously we've got a commitment and vaccinations, and you guys have done a great job with running clinics and using the federal partnership that started with CVS and Walgreens early on, and then partnering with the local health departments, etc. So, but with the recent variant, it's still important that people get vaccinated and their boosters, etc. And again, I want to thank the providers who are doing partnering with booster clinics. Some of those were like the League of People with Disabilities and New Horizons, etc. And so, and I don't mean to exclude anybody, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of, and many of you have done this, and outstanding. I appreciate it. So for more information, see the email and the phone numbers provided. But I want to give you a little update of where we are, because we have information as of yesterday. And this is just about boosters, because we know that many people had their first and second shot, or if they had J&J, the one shot. And now the question is where we are with boosters. We know that people had to wait about 6 months till after their second shot, if they had two, to get their boosters. So let me just give you a real, what I think is a success story. So the Central Region has 1,531 people who have received their booster. The East Shore has 369. The South Region has 957. And the West Region has 393. That's a grand total of 3,250. And I think that that's outstanding that, we're moving forward with boosters. You did an outstanding job with people getting vaccinated, early on, and as we continue to move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Patricia Sastoque, for our Director of Programs.
Thank you, Bernie. Appreciate that. So as all of you may know, Appendix K is the approval from CMS, Centers for Medicaid Services, to use a number of flexibilities to support us during the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. We certainly learned a lot through these flexibilities. And while some of these flexibilities were included in the DDA waiver and will be available ongoing, some will need to end. So this is the process we refer as the unwinding that you've heard us talked about in several of the webinars that we've done. We heard, you've heard the announcements from our Deputy Secretary Bernard Simons about the decision to extend those Appendix K flexibilities. This decision applies to those flexibilities that were scheduled to end on November 13, 21 and December 31st, 21. Will continue to March 31st of 22. What does this mean? This means that individuals, families, and providers can continue to use these flexibilities while you continue to plan your transition. This includes the flexibilities such as telephonic remote supports, hiring and onboarding, staff training, settings where services can occur, and isolation rate. What is important to know for today is that you have more time to plan for the transition, but planning for transition remains important. Your coordinator community services and providers can help you to understand these options. We will also be updating the Appendix K guidance tools and memos on our website as soon as possible, as we've done in the past, to provide clarity and guidance. And so thank you for understanding that with the network incident, this updates will be a bit delayed, but we want to make sure that you are aware in this webinar of those critical areas that will continue until March 31st of 2022. I see there's lots of questions coming in the chat about those services. So we'll hope to be able to answer some questions before today's webinar ends. I'm now going to ask Marianne Kane-Breshci, our Director of Family Supports, to share some updates related to individuals and families that are critical. Marianne, next slide.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. We're already there. Okay. Yep. There we go. We're good. All right. So it's been almost 3 years since COVID's found its way to Maryland and turned our lives upside down. Prior to COVID, we were all living life as normal. And DDA had established 2 new waivers, had new service definitions, and was positioned and eager to support people to live their best lives. COVID shut the world down, increasing and creating unprecedented challenges for people with developmental disabilities, their staff, providers, and families. Isolation, loss of jobs, daily routines, programs, connections with friends and families, and in some cases, the loss of actual loved ones and staff defined our lives. In an effort to support individuals, providers, and families, DDA's Appendix K, as Bernie and Patricia just spoke to, really provided different types of flexibilities to make supporting individuals possible. Technology became our primary mode of communication and the means by which we connected, albeit maybe not perfectly or how we might prefer, but nonetheless, it made connection possible and made much of this time bearable. So where are we now? The virus continues to impact our lives, preventing us from fully engaging life the way we once did. But as our community opens, how do we move forward? What do we need to think about and do? And to be honest, the answers to these questions are going to be different. For what's important to one person may not be for another, as is true of the challenges they may face. But this is also true for families supporting their family members as well as providers. So how do we move forward? What's possible? Next slide, please. First, you need to know the information you need to know, and we're able to provide you with updates here today, and that is critical. But even before that and after that, we got to get back to basics, and it's always about the person. Where does the person begin? I mean, it's as simple and as difficult as that. What do, as a person with disability, what do you or a family member who's caring for that person, what do you or your family member want and need? So those are the first questions to ask. And then as you begin to think about that, what are the challenges that bubble up or before you that prevent you from obtaining that goal, or your family member? As a family caring for your family member, these questions pertain to you as well. What do you want for, not only what do you want for your family member, but what are the challenges you face in supporting your family member to live their best life now? And of course, this applies to providers. As an agency, what's your vision? How do you intend and want to serve the people you're committed to? And what are those challenges you face? And then, of course, in each case, how do you begin to resolve them? Next slide, please. There are many different ways to consider and problem solve. The Charting the Life Course Integrated STAR is one tool that's available to you. The Integrated STAR offers the person, families, and providers alike the opportunity to brainstorm and really think through and identify potential resources and solutions to the problems and challenges they face. So whether you're a person who self-directs and is challenging with finding staff, or you might be a person who's supported by a provider of day services, but who isn't yet able to resume your services. Or maybe you're a residential provider who is now charged with providing day services or continuing to do so. Or you may just be, not just, but you may be a family concerned about their family member's quality of life. All of these, the Integrated STAR really provides opportunities for you, your CCS, and team to have deep, robust discussions and find solutions rooted in integrated supports and services provided to the individual based on what's important to and for them, and when and where they need them. It really gets back to person-centered planning. Next slide, please. So for your convenience here, we offer links here to the Charting the Life course in the Person-Centered Plan template, as well as the template for the family perspective. You'll find, if you go to these links, not only will you find these forms and templates, but you will also find short videos and so much more to assist you in your planning. Next slide, please. Before I let you go, I just want to tell you this. We wanted to highlight that DDA recently shared information about opportunities for people self-directing services, including options to hire a relative for the services as per the federally approved DDA operated Medicaid waiver program, and a new participant agreement that includes options to identify team members to assist in self-directing their employer and budget responsibility services. The DDA also held a webinar on November 29th and also shared information with the Self-Directed Advocacy Network, or SDAN, membership on December 2nd. We have included links here to the form, guidance, webinar, and presentation for your review. Next slide, please. So with that, I just can't encourage you enough to please review the forms, view the webinar. There's so much you'll learn, critical information you'll learn, such as who, when, and why the family a staff form must be completed, other things to keep in mind as you're planning. You'll also learn about the participant agreement for its purpose and what it means to the participant and all of the team members. Next slide, please. And finally, if you are self-directing your services and want to continue to employ your family members and others as staff after March 31st, 2022, you will need to be sure that they have all of their required trainings completed before March 31st, 2022. This training requirement for family members and other staff had been waived during Appendix K, so this planning is really important. Also, you will need to complete and submit the new family as staff form to identify these family members hired during the public health emergency before March 31st, 2022. But you do not need to do a PCP revision just for this reason. I am now going to invite Debbie Balea to share some updates related to coordination of community services. Thank you.
It looks like Debbie's having some audio issues.
I'm happy to go over her slides until we can get her back on. So this section is about our CCS section. So I'm going to go ahead and try to go through this while we can see if we can get Debbie. So next slide, please. So as we continue to transition from prospective payments to a fee-for-service via the LTSS Maryland DDA module, timely, quality, and complete person-centered plans remain critical. So this is going to be talking about the timely completion and submission of required PCP-related forms. So it is important that CCSs are tracking the completion of all person-centered plans related forms. This includes the health screening tool, their service implementation plan, the detailed service authorization tool, cost detail tool. These are required for the submission of a person-centered plan. The provider service referral acceptance is also as critical, and it's important to ensure that providers accept the service referral within the 5 days of the request being made, and services referrals should also be accepted for all new or changed services, as well as services that are ending. Next slide, please. So you have heard about the importance of person-centered planning and tools to help create a ROS PCP. You just heard Marianne talked about ways that we can do this. And so knowing that the flexibilities have been extended, this is an opportunity for work on the revisions of the plans. So one of the questions that we're getting is why and when do person-centered plans need to be revised or updated? And so changes to services, outcomes, and other elements of the plan that reflects a change to the person needs and wants. Reasons for revision may include, but not limited to, the initiation, change, or increase in a service. And updates to remove Appendix K services or flexibilities can be done at the annual PCP or when a plan revision occurs. It remains important, however, that the plan revisions do occur to add any new services or providers to ensure authorization for these additions. And so this is the reference that we have on the slide about the person-centered plan and authorization that was revised last year. Do we have Debbie yet?
Yeah, she's got some echo Turn your volume down, Debbie, on your computer.
Can you, Donna, in this mute? So we are on slide now 17. Thank you. So these are the additional questions that we received that we thought it would be worthwhile sharing with you all, just to provide some clarity. If an individual has used virtual supports during Appendix K flexibilities and wants to continue this in the future, is a plan revision required? And I think we shared this, and the answer is no. Individuals should be supported with conforming this interest.
Getting ready to talk to 500 people.
We can hear you, Kim. So this can be updated by providing by the provider in the individual service plan, which is the uploaded to the client attachments. And so we're saying that during the next revised or annual PCP, this interest would be reflected in the plan as well as in the service implementation plan. So here's something to note worthwhile for you to remember is the virtual supports are available to complement in-person supports, but cannot compromise the entirety of the service. Providers will also need to update the program service plans to add this model. And I think some of you have asked, this was supposed to be due at the end of this month, but since we are extending this to March, this means that that also is extended. Next slide, please. This one is another question that we're constantly are getting is Waiver Amendment 3 provides new access to some supports when a person is in an acute care hospital. What needs to occur for individuals who may want to use these supports after Appendix K? So similar to virtual supports, which is the modality or a way to receive an existing services, the same is true for supports during acute care hospital stay. So individuals should be updating their plans as they occur to reflect this interest at the service level. In addition, this should be reflected in the service implementation plan. So providers will also need to update their program service plans to add these modalities. Again, because we're extending this will then be also an extension to the March 31st date. Next slide. This one is just really a reminder. We talked about this and we're just asking families, people in services and providers about the transition youth, that there has been updates made to the transition youth Appendix K guidance on the DDA website, and this update support the planning and transitioning that was moved out of the Appendix K safely. So what we really want to do is make sure that individuals who are TY eligible for July 2020, July 2021, and July 2022 have until June 30th of 2022 to complete and submit the DDA waiver applications to be considered for DDA funding services. So, we just really want to make sure that our transition youths take advantage of these opportunities and these additional time frames so that they can go ahead and get to the services. So I am now going to turn this over to Kim Gscheidle, our director from the Eastern Shore. Kim, next slide, please.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today. My name is Kim Gscheidle, and I am the Eastern Shore Regional Director. I'd like to take this opportunity to say again, as our Deputy Secretary Simon said, what a wonderful job our providers have done during the past 2 years in keeping the people that you support safe. We just can't say it enough. Your dedication, support, and the innovative ways that you are providing support and services is truly remarkable. I will be highlighting some of that critical information as we continue to strategize the winding down of the Appendix K flexibilities noted on the slide that you're looking at, and as we discuss the critical nature of the provider surveys. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the Provider Program Service Plan and the key considerations related to virtual supports in particular. Virtual supports can be provided under meaningful day services and personal supports. It is important to emphasize that it is not a distinct or separate service under the waiver, but a means by which services may be delivered. The DDA's Waiver Amendment number 3 specifies that virtual support cannot comprise the entirety of the service to promote community engagement and the goals of the HCBS final settings rule. The purpose of virtual supports is to maintain or improve a participant's functional abilities, to enhance their interactions, to support meaningful relationships, and promote their ability to live independently and meaningfully participate in their communities. The frequency of in-person services should be established on an individual basis, and you heard that from Mary Ann, and it should be documented in the person's plan consistent with their goals. As we continue to come fully out of the pandemic and learn from the community the ways in which virtual supports complement in-person supports, additional guidance will be provided as we gain additional knowledge. In the meantime, the frequency of in-person and virtual supports are flexible and should be established on an individual basis and documented in the individual's plan. And it's really important to continue to say that it really must be the choice of the program participant and be utilized to support a person with meeting their identified outcomes. Next slide, please. Based on questions that DDA has received, we want to update you on some critical things to remember. Providers who are interested in continuing some or all of the retained service modalities that are permitted under Appendix number 3 must ensure that an updated PSP or Program Service Plan is submitted before December 31st, 2021, in order to continue offering virtual supports, shared dedicated hours, and supports during an acute care hospital stay. As detailed in Memo number 3, DDA Amendment number 3, virtual supports dated February 16th, 2021, in order for allowable virtual supports to be offered after the end of the Appendix K flexibility, they will need to be outlined in the provider's program service plan and submitted again prior to the end of Appendix K for DDA review and approval. The provider must submit their PSP before December 31st, 2021. And the DDA will follow up with providers on any questions. But providers that do submit by this due date can continue to provide virtual supports as permitted by the waiver as DDA performs the review and approval process. Next slide, please. In reference to shared hours, please remember that to support the transition to full reopening of services, additional updates regarding the unwinding of Appendix K flexibilities were recently issued. Particularly, residential daytime shared hours are being extended through March 31st, 2022. And please note that the links are in this PowerPoint on the slide that you are looking at for your reference. Next slide, please. As to the Appendix K flexibility update regarding day habilitation minimum hours, the Maryland Department of Health has also proposed emergency regulations to extend the suspension of minimum hours of meaningful day services to be provided during a single day through March 31st, 2022. And the effective date for that, based on what's been submitted in the emergency regulations, will allow it to be retroactive to January 1st, 2022. Next slide, please. To help us track the impact of the pandemic, as well as the actions that MDH has taken or will be taking to assist providers to operate through the COVID-19 pandemic, providers are expected to complete the twice-monthly survey. And I know this has been shared before. Deputy Secretary Simons has mentioned this, I believe, in all of his recent surveys. Survey response rates need to improve considerably in order for us to successfully work together to ensure people receive the services and supports that they need and want. In addition to data regarding COVID-19 vaccinations, the survey also includes questions which track the change in the total number of direct support professionals currently employed and the number of open DSP positions and the reopening status of day services. MDH DDA has created a dashboard to report and share this information. I want you to understand that individual agency data is not being tracked or reported on this dashboard. Only the aggregate data is used. We will not make individual provider data public. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates the overall low provider response, which is just as you will see all the way to your left. The response rate as of the survey date, December 16th, yesterday, is only at 36.5%. The vacancy rate continues to remain close to or just under 30%. The DSP vacancy ratio gives an indication that for every 3 DSPs working, providers are reporting the need for an additional DSP. Provider completion of these surveys is truly critical, as this will help us track the impact of the actions that MDH has taken and will take to assist providers to operate through the remainder of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. As we talk about reopening and thinking about new business models, I wanted to share a resource that is focused on improving employment outcomes for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And you see on your screen, this is from the Institute for Community Inclusion, and its employment is pleased to offer an online instructor-led course to support staff and related partners in facilitating improved employment outcomes and outcomes for individuals with intellectual disabilities who receive services. In this course that is being provided, you will learn important knowledge and skills to effectively support job seekers with intellectual disabilities throughout the employment process. You will have opportunities to interact with instructors and other participants through discussion boards, field work assignments, reflections on best practices, and opportunities for practical applications. You can register for this course, and you see the link on this slide, and so it is also in your PowerPoint, and you can register starting January 7th, 2022. Registration will close on January 28th, 2022. For more information on this comprehensive self-paced course, please use the link. So thank you, and I will now hand this over to Robert White for an update on the rates.
Great, and thank you, Kim, and season's greetings, everyone. As part of the process of establishing budgeted rates that will be loaded into the LTSS DDA module for FY 2022, the Provider Fiscal Impact Analysis tool, or what we refer to internally as FIAT, was designed to compare revenues that providers received under services provided through the prospective payment system that you're currently under in PCIS 2 to projected revenues in a fee-for-service environment, which will be billed in LTSS Maryland. We've updated our guidance regarding PCIS2 revenue to ensure consistency with the quality of the data and to allow for providers to get a more accurate sense of future state revenues in a fee-for-service environment. Hilltop will review that data on an individual level for providers, as well as an aggregate to provide another key input into the rate setting process. And in addition, this data analysis will inform the upcoming annual budget setting process, which will commence in early calendar year 2022. The aggregated provider data, along with our most important metric, which is your insights, will guide us in future rate setting, as well as identify any potential issues which will need to be addressed. Also, by adapting an annual review cycle, you will have input and contributions to an ongoing rate development process. This provides the mechanism to maintain rates that support our shared goals for quality community-based services and supports. And so, we held a provider webinar on December 3rd, and that webinar was very well attended, as well as 2 additional provider work sessions on December 8th and on December 10th. And these recordings are available on the website. And also the regional office fiscal staff are also available for support and assistance, and we encourage you to reach out to them. And soon a communication will be sent to all providers with modifications to the tool in response to your feedback, which we very much appreciate. This communication will also provide important information on your good questions around contributions to care, room and board, and as well as shared hours. It will also include updates to the FAQs and the rate files to help support your work. The DDA is requesting that all providers consider completion of this review. Obviously, the more providers that complete the tool, the better the data will be, or the more reliable. So please submit your analysis no later than January 5th, 2022, to be included in the aggregated report. Please be on the lookout for updated guidance, the revised tool, and a copy of the PCIS2 rates, which includes the ARPA 5.5%, as well as a copy of the budgeted rates with the components that were loaded into the fiscal impact analysis tool. We believe that we've addressed all of the compatibility issues within the tool. And I just want to, thank Laura and Max, who did a comprehensive compatibility scan, and it pointed out quite a few issues that could cause, the formulas not to operate properly in the older versions of Excel. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bernie to close us out.
Okay, so obviously the slide that you're looking at now is shows the regions and who the regional directors are, and not that you don't know that, but you do know that. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that my perspective is that the regional offices remain your partner, and don't hesitate not to reach out to them, but to reach out to them for any guidance, assistance, clarifications, etc. And we meet twice a week, virtually most of the time, since we don't need a quick hour meeting and have East and West drive in. And so I'm really happy. I think we've got a strong team, and I hope you appreciate their leadership. And I look forward as we emerge together with this, that we continue to have a strong focused and resilient path as we move ahead, and with getting out of the pandemic and transitioning into LTSS, assisting with workforce shortage, that it might get better as we see more money going into the system with some of the ARPA money, et cetera. So, and giving the providers that ability to do that. So again, it's been a long 2 years. I want to thank everybody for participating in all these webinars, and you can go to the next slide, and remember that we're doing these monthly now. So this slide should be showing it's up the upcoming how to register with the link. Please share with your colleagues and families and people who have to participate in our waiver if they're not attending this, so that they can register and they'll get a confirmation email about joining the webinars. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here throughout the last few years when we started these, having great questions that are always showing up in the chat box. Sometimes we don't have enough time to answer all of the questions, so we can do an FAQ, as we usually been doing, and get that posted and have that document. And again, your feedback is extremely important to help us guide. At the end of the day, it's people and supports their families and the providers that are the people who need to be the customers of DDA, and we need to support you. So with that, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday ahead. Please stay healthy, and thank you again for your dedication to the whole DDA community within Maryland. And with that, I think we go to some questions.
Thank you, Bernie. Appreciate that. So we do have several questions in the chat box. So we've also just wanted everybody to know that we invited Carrie Sanchi, who is our consultant for A&M, who has been an instrumental person in assisting the DDA with the Appendix K unwinding. So I will be asking her some questions in reference to some of those flexibilities. And then we also have some questions for Robert in reference to PCIs 2 and the January 5th date. And then we have some program questions that we'll ask either to Kim or myself. So let me start with you, Carrie. The first question is just to confirm, can we continue to provide 1 hour virtual service and bill for the entire day until March 31st, 21?
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to support some of these really good questions that are coming in. We anticipated that the news Bernie shared would generate a good number of questions. So I'll do my best to answer some of these. There's a lot of repeat questions, so we'll try to consolidate some of them and get you the information that you guys are looking for. So let's break down the Appendix K extension. Just for clarity, so as was described by Bernie and by others in the webinar, the flexibilities that were due to expire on 12/31 will be extended till 3/31. The flexibility related to the residential shared hours had already been extended to 3/31, and that was extended in accordance with the proposed emergency reg to continue waiving the billing minimums for day services. So to answer the question about the day, the answer is yes. The proposed regulation, emergency regulation, would extend that billing waiver as has been in place through 3/31, and the Appendix K will have the authority for that as well. So we are going to work really hard over the next couple of days to get that Appendix K termination chart updated. We know that there's a lot of questions about which flexibilities. So my quick guidance would be, if you have or can access the website to find the termination chart, look at the box, I believe it's on page 3, that references 12/31/21, and those flexibilities will be the ones that are extended through 3/31. I do want to also offer, because I do see some questions in the chat box about staff training. So in the November termination box, there was a number of annual training requirements that were scheduled to expire in mid-November. We had communicated with the providers in the community that those, if providers needed additional time to get folks complete in those annual trainings, they had until 12/31 to do that. We're going to push that out in accordance with the other news to 3/31. So again, we're going to update all the communications and the chart so we can make it crystal clear about the flexibilities that are continuing through 3/31. But we did want to get the information out today because we know folks have continued and will continue to work really hard around unwinding some of these flexibilities. And with the upcoming holidays, wanted to get you the word out quickly. And again, supportive guidance will follow just as quickly as we can, and we'll get that posted on the website and out through constant contact.
Thank you, Carrie. This one is for Robert. Will the deadline for PCS2 user verification be extended due to the outage? It was originally due today.
Right, sure. Thank you for that question, Patricia. I asked a follow-up question, but I don't think I got an answer. And so what I will do is take this question offline, inquire with the team, and then we'll provide the question in the FAQ, the answer in the FAQ.
All right, thank you, Robert. This one is about early adopters. Robert, for you. We're excited to get started in LTSS. Should the next wave of early adopters be expecting to start on February 1st, or will some communication come out in the next few weeks or so?
Great, thank you for that question. So what I can tell you is that we are also excited, obviously, about expanding the pilot as prescribed in Senate Bill 796, and that we are currently working internally to achieve certain milestones that will play a role in informing a timeline, and we will be sending out a communication that will enable us to send out a communication in the near future.
Thanks, Robert. The next one is a program question and is in reference to Kim's presentation in reference to the entirety of the service. And so the question here is, does this mean per day, per week, per plan year? And that's a really great question. And so the frequency in the person's services should be established on an individual basis and documented in the person's plan consistent with their goals. So as we come to fully out of the pandemic, we've learned that, the community and around how virtual supports is a complement in person-centered supports. We are adding additional guidance will be provided. So in the meantime, what we're saying, the frequency of in person and virtual is flexible and should be established on an individual basis and documented in the individual's plan. So the DDA has not made a decision as the entirety of it. It means per day, per week, per plan. We're just saying it based on your person-centered plan, and make sure you reflect that on the plan. And Carrie, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
No, I think that was well summarized. I do want to share, and thanks again to a number of folks on the call today who we've been working with and getting really good feedback, providers and other community members. I think what Patricia said is really clear. It is important that as you're, I think folks are looking for a specific number of how many hours of virtual per week or how many hours of in-person per week. And so, I think the real goal here that the DDA has really worked towards is community integration. And so it's not expected that folks will receive after, March 31st, they'll receive the majority of or all of their services virtually. But recognizing some individuals might have, unique circumstances that the amount of virtual supports might be different than the average person. So what I would say is, just exactly how Patricia emphasized it, work through the individual person, the person-centered planning process, work with your regional office, your CCSs, and really align the volume of services that individuals want, the modality that they want with their individual goals.
Thanks, Carrie. Speaking of modality and individual goals, let's talk a little bit about staff ratios, because that question has been asked here. And we've also been asked questions about CDS and the staffing ratios. So I think this would be a good opportunity, Carrie, for us to talk about one-on-one, two-on-ones, and when does a plan needs to be revised. Do you want to touch base on that?
Yeah, sure. So again, through work with community partners, the staff ratio would be extended. The waiver of the staff ratio would be one of the flexibilities extended through the end of March. I think what we do want to highlight, though, is that if there are providers who are providing different staffing levels for individuals who have a documented one-to-one or two-to-one staffing support need, the expectation ongoing, even throughout the Appendix K, is that providers who may need to waive that ratio but can really assure the health and safety of individuals, they work with the regional offices around those temporary waiver of the one-to-one and two-to-one to make sure that the individualized needs can still be met safely. So you have the flexibility through 331 around the staff ratios, but just a reminder to work with your regional office staff for individuals specifically who need that one or who have a one-to-one or two-to-one documented in their plan.
Thanks, Carrie. There's another program question. I think as people are working through the LTSS tool, when meaningful day services change to LTSS, if participants need ongoing support, should a provider also include follow-along supports and bill for both in a month if both follow-along and ongoing supports are provided, or do you only bill one of this? That is a great question. I think we've been asked this one a couple of times at different venues. So I'm going to bring it up here again. So the beauty of the meaningful day employment services for follow-along and ongoing supports, that is a service that you can bill within the same month. The follow-along is a minimum of face-to-face visits, and then for hours, and then you have the ongoing supports that you can bill based on the person's need. So yes, you can bill for those within a month. And then I have one more question for Robert. Will PCS2 be back up in, this is about the PCS2 in the deadline for January 5th for the provider rate analysis tool. Would that be extended, or is there any considerations for extension?
Great, thank you, Patricia. So there's several questions related to PCIS2 and the system being offline. And so regarding being able to complete the fiscal impact analysis tool, part of incorporating to the guidance that we will be sending out very, very soon is guidance around how to calculate PCIS2 revenue. And it involves basically, using the rate chart that will accompany the guidance in calculating a month's worth of revenue, and then basically taking that out 12 months and using that as the input. But we'll have further guidance regarding that in the email that will go out. And then as far as attendance is concerned, once PCIS2 is back online, we'll extend the timeline for submitting attendance. And if you, for one reason or another, you're not able to get it in within that timeline, then you just revert to using the error updates. But until then, I would continue to use whatever internal process you have based on your policies for contingency and or downtime procedures, just to continue to document the attendance so that it can be input into the system once it's up.
Thanks, Robert. This does bring us to 2 o'clock, but there's one that I thought that you could answer really quickly. Is the ARPA 5.5 rate increase a permanent increase, or is it through the end of FY22?
So the 5.5% ARPA increase was the retroactive increase using the ARPA savings. So part of that, you know, in order to get that blessing from CMS, they want to make sure that the states are able to sustain that. And so our plan has been to, you know, as a state, to step in to maintain that glide path so that there's not this drop off in revenue. So in short, I guess the answer is permanent.
Thank you, Robert. This brings a little over 2 o'clock, so thank you everybody for joining us, and happy holidays.